This week on XOP's Whitetail Addiction, Justin Hollandsworth is trying to pull a hat trick off on mature bucks all through the Midwest. It's full of big bucks and big moments. XOP presents Whitetail Addictions. XOP presents Whitetail Addictions.
I'm Justin Hollandsworth, and I'm from Ohio, and I have a wife that's very understanding about my whitetail addiction, and I have a little boy, Mason. He's 5 years old, and he's I got him out there now, and he's starting to show a little interest, and but I got my whole start with it all started with my grandfather. He was that influence in my life that got me started, got me out there hunting, fishing. Since then, it's just went to a whole different level. Over the years, it started off when I was 14 years old, where I had shot my first deer with a bow, and after that, it just kind of got worse every year, so to speak. But it's now it's something that I think about every day. I don't know if a minute of the day goes by that I am not thinking about something whitetail related. I actually think now that if I don't do at least one thing a day whitetail related, then I'm kind of putting myself behind on possibly getting a crack at that next deer. I live in a state where we only get one buck tag a year, so it's gotten to the point now where that's not good enough for me. I'm going to Illinois and Wisconsin and Iowa and Kansas and wherever I think I can find that big deer. I have a good friend that lives in southern Iowa, so when I can draw one of those Iowa bow tags, that's the first place I'm going for the year. One of the ways I like to hunt in Iowa is I like to get into these corridors in between two bedding areas and get a wind that is something I can get in and rattle to where a deer can't get behind me, where I use some kind of structure, whether it's a pond or maybe it's a cattle pasture that is going to be just something that the deer are going to be, it's going to make it hard for them to get around. Right off the bat, a young 9-point came in. Not a deer that I was looking to take, but it was a good way to start my hunt off.
That's definitely the biggest buck I've ever passed. We thought he was a 3-year-old, probably in the 40s, probably the low 40s. But man, what a great deer. Let's shut up, because we're getting a steady dose of deer right now.
The one thing that amazed me about Iowa is I could not believe how the deer respond to horns. It's not like that back home. I don't know, honestly, if I ever have rattled a deer in my life back home. One of the things that I noticed is it was almost like you couldn't rattle too much there. You could crack those horns, but the one thing I did notice is the more that I rattled, the smaller the bucks got. First day in Iowa, we had a great time. We saw a lot of deer, a lot of nice bucks, but just nothing that I was looking for. So as we were walking in and saw a big shooter, it's a deer I would definitely take. I'd like to get a crack at him, but now I know he's around.
Before I could even get set up this morning, I had a big 4 or 5 year old, probably in the 140s. I probably would have shot him. He had a bunch of trash and stuff on him. He came right down here below me. Could have smoked him. He was at freaking 20 yards. My bow was still on the freaking ground.
I'm in the stand and I had a deer come in, and he's a big deer, old deer, definitely a deer that I would have shot. I grunted to him a couple times, but not realizing that he was with a doe.
The whole time that I've been here, I have not hardly seen a deer at all in any kind of like food plots or cornfields or bean fields or anything. They're all, especially the big deer, they're all staying in the timber.
I got set up shortly, and off to my left there was a big deer. I did everything in my powers to try to get that deer over with my grunt call.
Seconds feel like hours, and this is where your experience counts. It's all about being patient and knowing when to make things happen.
Yes. That's what I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for this weather to change.
And Justin had some bone on the ground.
Oh my. Yeah. Dude. Look at the mass on that joker.
After we found the deer, man, I could not believe how big this deer was. He had way more mass than I thought.
Well, here's the buck that I shot this morning. I guess the whole story behind this deer, actually, the ground over here that we've been hunting, we were getting trail camera pictures of the deer. We wasn't sure if he was a shooter. We knew he was definitely a 4-year-old buck. I couldn't be more happy with all that character.
From Iowa to Kansas, Justin is looking for buck number 2.
It's November 5th today.
I had a young heavy 8 come in early in the hunt, but by Kansas standards, not a big deer, so I decided to let him go. I went back to the same set the next day, just to kind of get a better feel of what was truly going on.
It's November 6th today.
Probably saw roughly 15 different bucks, and all the good stuff was just too far. And all the little bucks were right there for me to shoot.
It is November 7th today, and we're having a good day. this buck this morning, so.
I had to mix it up. I was not seeing the kind of deer that I wanted close, so I had to make a move and get closer to these good bucks that I was seeing. One of the things that we noticed, we were seeing a lot of good bucks, and as the week went on, we were seeing more. So we noticed that rattling was working much better. I banged those horns together, and I did not even get them hung up. I turned around, the deer was standing right in front of me. It was game on. He came right to the base of the tree. I saw this buck earlier in the week, and I knew if I could get a crack at it, I was definitely going to take that deer.
Guess I could swing this on you.
It smokes.
You rattled him right in.
Man, rattle that buck. Right in. It's pretty too.
Give me some. All right. Oh, I see body.
Okay, today's November 9th. It's our 7th day of our Kansas bow hunt, and what can I say? We got it done this morning on a deer that I actually had an encounter with the other day, just right over the hill right here. I had him at roughly, I don't know, 43 yards, and he was slightly quartering two. I never felt comfortable in the shot, so I just elected to pass, and I'm glad I did. So, this is an awesome deer and an awesome hunt.
One of the cool things about this hunt was it was completely different terrain than I'm used to. We took aerial photos. We went into this place, figured it out on our own in 7 days, and both of us got it done. The particular place that I'm hunting is in central Ohio, and it's a place I've been hunting for about 5 or 6 years. It's a place that it has good genetics, but it varies from year to year. My whole game plan was to put a clover plot to where I could access this and not be seen getting in or out, and to hunt this deer on a particular tree. But I also had a backup in case the deer wasn't showing up on the food plot in daylight hours. I got up the tree, and after I got settled in, I had a young 8 come in. It wasn't a deer that I was looking to shoot, but it was a good way to start the evening. And shortly after that, 11 point came out. He's a good deer. I think he's a 3-year-old. He's not a deer that I'm looking to shoot, but I'm hoping he makes it for a couple years, and he's going to be a good one. I don't know if anybody's ever used one of these. I can tell you that this little thing right here will put the odds in your favor for getting that crack at that big deer in daylight hours. I guess what I'm trying to say is the activity level really picks up during these peak moon phases. Sometimes you don't have to hunt all the time. You just gotta hunt at the right time. As the evening went on, I had some young bucks and some does come out. I wasn't seeing the kind of deer that I was expecting to see. And from sitting in the stand and being able to see that rub line from the stand, I knew that I had to make a move. So a few days later, when the wind was right, I came back with my XOP on my back, slipped in, read that sign, and got set up to where I thought I could catch that deer staging before he came to the plot. Shortly after I got set up, I thought it would be a good idea to make a few soft calls to maybe get that deer up on his feet, thinking there was another deer in the area. It wasn't 2 hours after I got set up, I looked off to my left-hand side and I saw that deer coming from that thicket. I knew that's where he was coming from. As the deer approached, I really had to keep my emotions in check because I watched the deer for 20 minutes before he ever got to me.
This is the difference between a 2.5-year-old and a true mature buck. They always check their wind. Wild apples and pears are killer for early season. Big mature deer know when these trees start to drop fruit. It's a great ambush spot for early season. Before the break, Justin is within range of his third mature buck of the year. A few more feet, and Justin can let the arrow fly.
That deer, he tried everything in the world to do to win me. He caught it with me at one point. I set that camera up purposely because I know that they were coming through here, and that's what he's been doing for the last 3 or 4 days before heading over to my food plot.
After I shot, I gave the deer probably 30 minutes. I knew it was a good shot, but I wanted to get down and take a look at the blood. After that, I called a good friend, and we met up a couple hours later.
Well, it's been probably about an hour and a half. It's just about dark. I did follow the blood for a little ways, but I didn't like, the blood was starting to get pretty spotty, so I just took one of my lighted knocks, lit it, stuck it on the ground. Got my buddy Mike here. He's going to give me a hand and hopefully recover the steer. But that it started off and he was bleeding really good, and then we just kind of shut it off. So we're going to go back over to where my lighted knock is and hopefully recover the spot.
It was ended up being kind of a tough blood trail. we ended up finding the deer, and actually that deer surprised me. He was bigger than what I thought he was.
Well, here he is. Boy, this deer has given me slip over the last 2 times that I hunted him, but I came in here tonight. We just got into a good moon phase, and I kind of took a chance tonight, and I hunted that wind that was just barely good for me, but was pretty good for him. And boy, I tell you what, he took 5 steps, stopped, checked the wind, looked around, listened. Every move he made was pretty cautious. Those apples and pears were coming down from that tree over there, and after he got in there, he was all good after that. But this is probably definitely my biggest buck to date, and I couldn't be just tickled to death.
To me, and honestly, it truly is. I like doing the work to get to that point. That deer, that was 2 years. I passed him up many times before. A lot of trail camera pictures in years past. Picked up a shed from him, and then to seal the deal on him that evening was just icing on the cake.